Alrighty. So here we are. I suppose I should probably figure out some music to play. I forgot about that. We did do that last time. I think it was like some dungeon synth or whatever. Okay. Cool. All right. So we are going to be working today on the these are some donor tasks that I have here. As you guys can probably see, it's now on Trello. We're a little bit more organized with it. And I can also mark these as completed because Shoulder gave me the thumbs up on them. So yeah, the remaining stuff that we have here, I was working on some Gijag stuff earlier. It's basically a giant toad race. The stuff there is looking good, but we are going to be moving on to the Exactor class conversion on today's stream. We won't be doing any other tasks today on stream. If I do more D&D work later today, it'll be off stream. And you'll probably see, I mean, I've said this many other times before on these streams, but I do genuinely believe that now that I've moved and now that I'm at the new location, you're going to see some more content in general in terms of just frequency of it. I think you'll see a little bit more of it. So that is the goal. That is the hope. We'll see what we can do there. Now, the main person who is responsible for the Exactor class is Three Crow, and he is not here right this moment. He is currently getting food, so Dinner Man strikes. However, we will be, working on his class, so I'll probably give it a little bit of an initial read through here in a moment while I wait for him to pop in here. But I will also be talking a little bit about some of the other stuff that I have to do. Yeah, we'll see how things go. It's definitely something that I am interested in seeing where we can take the class itself, but also in seeing how these options change things up. Oh shit, he's already here. Perfect. So yeah, I was just talking a little bit about how you were the main person responsible for this. You wrote up the initial treatment for, levels through 6th and all that. So I think as you're getting more familiar with the sort of power scaling of a Syndosaur, you're probably also going to use that to influence how you design the classes. Though if you end up designing the classes like the Awoken all the way through 20th level, it's not a problem per se, right? It's like, it just means that, like, I have some adapting to do if I want to get some of those ideas in there. But at least you can then share it for whoever wants to see it. Whereas if it's just through 6th level, that probably reduces the applicability of it to be shared amongst other people who are playing other D&Ds. So anyway, the Exactor is supposed to be this class. It's actually an area of interest for me as a class design space is psionics, and I find that the default psionic stuff for Psi Warrior, for Fighter, and for there is like a Scion or Psyker type class. I can't remember. It came out somewhat recently, I think, for 5th edition. I find all of the first party psionic stuff really boring, uninspired, or at least incomplete. Like, they have some ideas, but they don't necessarily give it to you in the way that you would like. However, maybe I do have to acknowledge that might be because I am operating within a completely different design space for a Syndosaur D&D. Like, I mean, it's around the corner, I guess, but it's a lot more about, like, each level is contentful. Each level is in deliberate choice. You don't skip to level 3 in a Syndosaur. You need that first level to, learn about your character and learn about their capabilities, because you have a combination that you will not get any other way. You could even make 2 characters of the same race and class and end up with different things depending on your choices. But as long as you change one of those things, the class or the race, you are going to get some completely different experiences, because like an orc cleric is going to be different than a human cleric, right? Like the way a Syndosaur works, they're not just like stat blocks that are interchangeable, despite the fact that they come from different backgrounds. So, yeah, I see here that you said didn't like any of the default stuff either. Thematic Scion spreads you too thin. Yeah, I'm a little bit staunchly, like, right now, feeling like still feeling like I should be against multiclassing, still feeling like that shouldn't be a thing that we worry too much about. But not because the idea of your character learning a completely different discipline or something along the way is not attractive or interesting to me. It's more so like I find the way that multiclassing is handled in a mechanistic level is very. It was bad in 3.5 because you started getting like less experience and stuff, and I don't like it in 5th edition because it just feels very complex for not a lot of gain. And I am someone who, as a DM, wants to be able to comprehend a character in terms of their mechanics so that I can build interesting content with their mechanics in mind that will lead to more role-playing. I'm not saying that if somebody made a multi-classed character in an existing Ascendastor campaign, that would somehow be too much of a challenge for me to design content for, or I would end up like falling flat, missing some stuff or whatever. But like, I'm pretty good at ad-lib. I'm pretty good at like improv stuff. So I'd probably figure out a way at pretty quickly, but it just seems like it's a little bit too much consideration for one character, because most characters aren't multi-classed. So when one is, they end up creating a bit of this imbalance in how you approach it, how you consider it. Whereas if a character just more organically has their default class, background, race, etc., and then they get bespoke, custom-made things for not just the campaign or the environment, but their character, like the way that in the donor campaign, this is a little bit spoilery because it just happened recently, but I'll allude to it in vagueness because we're releasing the donor campaign episode this weekend. The idea that I have behind what was given to our Gagrami character, Tiber, is that is an example of, and that's not the template, but that is an example of like a storyline specific, like campaign specific boon handed to one character by some powerful entity. And that's not in the stat sheet as a class, right? Like I might build a feature that says like what Tiber can do now, more and lays it down as like a gameplay rule or whatever. And then lets him like click on it as an action to appear in the chat card so everybody can see. But that's like not something that's going to be part of a class or part of a race. It's not a background thing that exists because of a choice that was made in character creation or during a level up. Instead, it's a choice made by a character. It's many choices made by a character over time that give them this boon. So I've talked about this before in some of the donor content, but that's definitely something that I think is way more enticing. So if you end up being a warlock that really wants to be able to play a musical instrument to channel your pact boons through or something, then rather than multi-classing as a bard, which would actually restrict what you can do in some ways as a warlock, we could just develop bespoke content for your custom vision of your character, and it can be very, very homebrew, and I think that's fine, and not just fine, but actually desirable compared to multi-classing. So those are some thoughts that I have there. What's up, Shambler? Multi-classing is mostly used for min-maxing or combining specific class features, like Druid getting Barbarian Rage, right, or Fighter dipping Rogue. So yeah, the min-maxing thing does turn me off a little bit as well. Mostly because, again, I'm designing the set. I'm making every encounter. I'm making every map. And so, like, I'm already handling you guys don't need to worry about, like, this is pre-made content that I'm not adjusting in any capacity. Like, even if I used a module of some kind, I would still be adjusting things. I'd still be changing stuff up or describing differences in the map from what's visible or, whatever. I'd still be doing something like that because I'd be changing it to best fit and adapting it to best fit what you guys are doing and what your guys' characters are like. So min-maxing presumes that there is a challenge that is somewhat fixed that can be overcome by doing that kind of thing. Whereas really, like, not to say that some challenges are just too powerful, like trying to fight a god, for example. You guys found that out. But some challenges are just insurmountable or whatever, at least in the moment that you might try them. And so in that case, there are some things that are fixed, but like in order for a satisfying story to play out, there has to be some aspect of like, you know, you have to really walk into an instant death like that. You have to, or an instant victory as well. You have to really set it up so that your characters are making a lot of mistakes or a lot of the opposite of mistakes. They're doing a lot of correct decisions in order for that kind of thing to happen. So that's sort of where I'm coming from in that perspective, is like min-maxing isn't really necessary. You know what I mean? Like I can give you guys I can modulate the challenge to meet your guys' capacity, and you know, especially as I learn more about, and you guys learn more about how to play your characters, then that's going to change over time as well. And that doesn't mean that you'll never die, and it doesn't mean that a character will never go down. I mean, you guys are finding that out in the donor campaign, where like typically if there's combat, one player is going down at least once. You know, like at least one downing will occur. And like I think the last time we guys did combat was 3. It was like one character went down twice and the other one went down once, as I recall correctly. So like, you know, so I'm not saying it's going to be a cakewalk, and I'm exactly giving you enough to make you feel like maybe you're in danger, but not actually be in danger, because that would ruin immersion and ruin the experience. But it's more that like I think everything that I'm putting at you guys is going to be fair. You don't have to min-max so that you can feel powerful. Like there's going to be times where just by virtue of role playing, well, you're going to get yourself into situations where you are powerful. And, you know, that doesn't mean I'm a mastermind who foresees every possible outcome like Doctor Strange or whatever. I'm more so what I'm doing is like, I have a loose idea of how you guys might approach this thing. And then if you approach it in a way that's makes it more challenging, then, well, all right. You know, or if you make it, you know, easier by virtue of something else. So anyway, I don't think min-maxing is needed. And therefore that's another thing that makes multi-classing feel redundant. If you wanted the angle of like one class gets this other feature from another class, I would find a way to adapt the archetype of that feature from the rogue to the fighter. I mean, we kind of have Weapon Master to sort of have an aspect of that with like momentum building and whatnot. But anyway, that's like that's its own thing. So I wanted to just throw that out there. I think multi-classing is poo-poo, but that's because I have. It's not because of the fact that it lets you customize your character more completely and more specifically. I obviously want that because of everything else I'm doing. It's mostly just because I think the mechanistic result, the mechanical end result, is not to be desired. So that is my my take on that. So I'm going to take the sip, and then I'm going to go and start working on the exactor. It is through the act of negotiation from which wisdom arises. Through careful contemplation, risk assessment, and mutual trust, a creature learns the fundamental lessons of life: what can be gained, what can be lost, and at what price. Exactors express their influence by exploiting the magic that lies in bargains, contracts, and promises. Some exactors are regarded as the same as manipulative devils or tricksy fae, while others become notorious as masterful purveyors of wishes and dreams. Regardless of the deals they broker, exactors always reap their boons with clinical prejudice when their beneficiaries fail to uphold their ends. Interesting, okay. So, I had already read a little bit about this when it was first deployed, but I am not supremely up to date on it. I should mention that I'm seeing like we had this brief. I opened up this can of worms in a recent donor recording when I was doing the Gijag stuff. I think that would have been the 26th. So 2 days ago, I opened up this can of worms because I was thinking about how like your race should create an HP pool that you add to your class level. And if you are a race of not so powerful, not so strong people, like a kobold is not like very durable, right? You would just not have a bonus. It wouldn't be a penalty. I mean, maybe there would be some cases where having a penalty would make sense, but I can't think of any that are currently playable. Like Aranas would probably be like +2. Human would probably be something similar. Maybe human would be +1. It would not that much, but like a thing. I don't know. I'd have to think about it. And this would be like a bonus that you would get every level. And so it's like a flat bonus that applies every time you level up. And also, of course, for first level. And so I was thinking about that. And when I see 1d8 per exactor level, in my head, and this doesn't bear out in the current archetype that we have for the gameplay. But if I were to successfully redesign hit dice, we would have like hit dice classification, and we would have like D4 equals wizard. It might just be wizard. D6 would be like your rogue, sorcerer, ranger. D8 would be like your... Let me think. I'm thinking of like the basic classes. I feel like D8 is a good one for druid. I guess I'll say warlock. I'd probably think of warlock as like something that could be probably think of warlock as more something that could be variable based on the pact, right? But if I go to the classes, so we have, yeah, I guess like artificer would be D8. Oh, D6 would probably be bard. I think cleric is D8 natively. Is that right? Champion. Okay. Yeah, I forgot there's some new ones. Captain and champion, huh? Yeah, cleric is D8 in 5th edition. And then, yeah, obviously you have like D10 would be, I think fighter and paladin are the native ones, and then D12 is barbarian. Let me see if I'm missing any obvious ones. Sorcerer. Oh, monk. I guess monk is probably it's a D8 natively. So I would have to decide, do I want cleric or monk to be D8? Because I feel like D8 is like a brawler utility class, and D10 is more of like a tank class, and barbarian is kind of a special exception for being D12. And so that's where it would be like cleric, and then monk. Yeah, cleric and monk are like martial with utility, like mystic martial, but you know what I mean? So, and then like paladin is a little bit more front. So anyway, it would be like, D4 would be, backline, I guess is like a term we could use. And then D6 would be like your support. D8 would be, there's probably a better term. This is like also support, but there's a better term for that. Like this one, I was thinking of like enchanter almost as like a rule for this one, would be for D6, but it's not quite correct to call it that. And this one is just like juggernaut probably, and then this one would be your tank frontline. And so that's sort of where I'm at for the like classification. I can spell classification. And then, in order to add stuff here, obviously there's like Ironhead. And then like there's variable, which would be, awoken. So it'd be like, and then I think we decided Gulam would be D10, but I can't recall off the dome. But yeah, so anyway, like Exactor being D8 is what it tells me in my own mind, where this is not something Three Crow is aware of. We only just started talking about this like a few days ago. But looking at it now, this is making me think of the Exactor as someone who would probably prefer to be in the middle of the pack of a party. They don't mind occasionally being towards the front line, and they also don't mind occasionally being towards the back line, but they have that versatility. So I feel like that's pretty good. So makes sense to me. I believe the Immortal is D10, if I'm not mistaken. Though I guess it could be D12, but let's see here. Yeah, Gulam was 1D8. And then if we scroll down, Immortal is 1D10. So, yeah, that makes sense. Awoken is variable, like I already wrote. Ironhead. Oh, and Weapon Master is probably D8. I guess Weapon Master might be D10, but I feel like... Yeah, Weapon Master is D8. That makes more sense to me, because they're relying on their momentum and their ability to do a lot of damage. And so, like, I guess these would be variable. Special. So, you know, like, because there's a wide variety of different roles at play within D8. And if we were to add Exactor to this list, like, that fits with what my imagination is. Where, like, pretty much all of these classes are fine to be, you know, pushing in and out of combat on the front line versus the back line versus in the middle, and moving across. They're going to be the classes that, like, by and large, are going to be moving a lot. And these are, you know, we'll call these ones Specialist, I think, as opposed to Enchanter. Because that's a little bit better for, like, Rogue and Sorcerer and stuff. Now, again, this is not current. Like, technically, Monk and Cleric are D8. And, like everything is accurate except for Wizard being D4. I believe Wizard is D6. I'm going to close Incarnate, because that might be spoilers. Yeah, D6. And Sorcerer is probably also D6, if I'm correct. Yeah. Like, I like the idea of Wizard being D4. I really want that to be... I want that to make a comeback. I like that a lot. But again, with the... So I've had... It's funny. Man, I have so many thoughts that are connected to, like, game design within D&D. If I keep talking about them all, I'll never get through this. So I'll just shelve that for later and probably record a donor log about it. So if you want to donate $3 a month or more, you can get access to those donor logs. You can go to our coffee page. Very good stuff. Okay. So anyway, the Exactor having 1d8 hit dice is inspiring within me this idea that it's going to be in the middle of the pack and pretty versatile in terms of its ability to move back and forth. That's what we can call these guys. Versatile, not variable. Versatile. That's pretty appropriate. So proficiencies are with light armor, simple weapons, one martial weapon. I like that, being able to have spent the time to master at least one weapon or become proficient in it. Calligrapher's supplies and forgery kit. Hell yeah. Saving throws, wisdom and charisma. Makes sense. And that also tells you that this is going to be a little bit more of a social and mystical, magical. Like, martial on the left, arcane on the right, and then in between, in the middle, is mystical or mystic, right? And so on that graph, if you will, along that plot, they are closer to the arcane than they are to the martial, based on what I'm reading here. The saving throws tell you a lot, because that is indicating the primary skills for the class a lot of the time. So, and then you can, for your skills, you can choose two between Arcana, Deception, History, Insight, Intimidation, Persuasion, or Religion. Yeah, I think it's all the social ones that are charisma based. And then there are some wisdom-based ones as well, which makes sense. Yeah. Okay. I might add one to that list, but I can't think of it right now. All right, equipment: leather armor or noble's clothes, one simple or martial weapon, and one dagger. Interesting. Okay. Diplomat's pack or scholar's pack. Calligrapher's supplies. Arcane focus. We can probably think a little bit about what the arcane focus for an exactor might be. Also, one thing that I noticed in the flavor text up here, I would probably when I draft the version on our document, I'm probably going to more emphasize the capacity for subtle influence within one's mind. And I was also thinking that, without reading enough about the background of the exactor yet, I was also thinking about the voice from Dune, where like their psionic capacity could be, it could definitely be expressed through their vocalizations. So that would mean that it's like there's a lot of spellcasting that is done through verbal components. And then, like, the Ghulam was more somatic. And I think the Sorcerer was planned to be kind of pushed in that direction as well when I was thinking about it. But the speech is something that's like, yeah, wizards use that, and sorcerers may currently use that. And then, anyway, having it be not just, like, a verbal component that talks about, like, casting a spell, but it being like demanding your participation, demanding your allegiance or whatever in the moment, your obedience. Finding a way to do that, I think. Well, I mean, right here it is called Silver Tongue, so let me read that. But that was what I was thinking for thematics. You possess an innate affinity for communication that aids you in your attempts to persuade, deceive, intimidate, or gain insight. Choose 2 from among deception, insight, intimidation, and persuasion. You gain expertise with those skills. And you learn any 4 languages of your choice. That's pretty baller. I like that a lot. 4 languages is a lot. Obviously, it's like on top of your common. Your race dictates language a lot of the time. So usually you will have common and 1 language other than that. So you will have 6 languages to start. And I think that's very... it is difficult to underestimate how much impact that can have. It's also... It's hard to quantify a lot of the time because it's so dependent on campaign. But like, I have a very... the heliocentric model? Where everything revolves around the sun? I'm still on the Earth-centric model. Like... the Ascendosaur-centric model. I don't think about like how other people might use this class. I'm thinking about how we are going to use the class in Ascendosaur. And so knowing how I come up with the campaign environment and like figure out how to populate NPCs and stuff, absolutely there'd be like loads of points for interaction where the exactor could be the chief negotiator, chief discusser, chief person, head person, diplomat or whatever, like talking about stuff, even amongst enemies. So it would be really unlikely, especially with 4 languages. Like, it's probably unlikely that the campaign, the encounters within the campaign wouldn't provide you eventually within like even given 1 session, you'll probably be able to use minimum 2, probably on average 3 of those 4 languages that you have. Or I guess I could put it another way. You'll probably be able to use minimum 3, average 5 of the 6 languages that you have in stock. And the, like, obviously common being included, that's like a guarantee that you're going to use that because you're with people. You're with a party that probably doesn't speak all the same language other than common. And so that's just something that comes to mind. Like, that's actually a really good amount of power, even though it doesn't manifest in like, oh, I get bonus die rolls on my, attack command or so. Like there's no combat oriented, like direct math that gets better for the player when they do this. But the amount of potential role playing is really good. So I love that. And 4 is a bold choice. It's a lot. But I'm saying yes to that, at the gate right now. Maybe I'll reconsider it later, but I don't think so. I think that's a really cool one. All right, so we go into the spellcasting for level 1. A combination of study and charismatic prowess grants you the ability to persuade the underlying magic of the world to bend to your will. I'll probably reword that to be a little bit more on the psionic side. I might even change it from spellcasting to something else, but it is, for all intents and purposes, spellcasting. At first level, you know 4 cantrips of your choice from the Exactor spell list. You learn additional Exactor cantrips of your choice at higher levels, as shown in the cantrips known column of the Exactor table. Oh, cool. Okay, yeah. Spell slots. The Exactor table shows how many spell slots you have to cast your Exactor spells of first level and higher. To cast one of these spells, you must expend a spell slot of the spell's higher level or higher. You regain all expended spell slots when you finish a long rest. So you have 2 first level spell slots at level 1. Okay. That's pretty standard. When you complete a short rest, you may recover a number of spell slots whose cumulative levels are no higher than your proficiency bonus. For example, if you're a 3rd level Exactor, because your proficiency bonus is 2 at 3rd level, okay. You may recover up to 2 first level spell slots or 1 second level spell slot. Yeah, that makes sense. When spells known of first level and higher, you know 2 first level spells of your choice from the Exactor spell list. Each time you gain a level in the Exactor class, you may learn an additional 2 spells from the Exactor spell list. So long as the new spell is of a level for which you have spell slots. Okay. So when you start, you have 2 first levels. And then when you level up to level 2, you have 3 spell slots, but you can learn 2 new spells. Okay. And when you learn a spell, let's see, it might say so later. Spellcasting ability, Charisma is your spellcasting ability for your Exactor spells. Makes sense. Blah, blah, blah. In addition, you use your Charisma modifier when setting the saving throw DC. Yep. Spellcasting focus. Arcane focus is a spellcasting focus. Preparing spells. When you complete a long rest, you may choose a number of Exactor spells you have prepared less than or equal to your proficiency bonus. Okay, yeah, this is what I was wondering. You may forget those spells and prepare 1 new spell from the Exactor spell list for each spell forgotten in this way. So, how many can you have at one time is the question. Prepared. Do you know are your cantrips always prepared? Because it says known, so I think maybe. But known is different than prepared. Known just means you can prepare them. And you prepare on long rest, is what it looks like. So yeah, that's probably something I need a little bit of clarification on. Cantrips are always prepared. The spell gains function similar to Sorcerer in that you always have the spells prepared. Okay, so cantrips you always have prepared. But for spells that have a level, first level and higher, it says you can forget. It seems like by this wording, it seems unclear as to whether or not how many you can. Do you get number of spells equal to your spell slots? You can have that many, or music, by the way. Yeah, there's a dungeon synth playing. I can drop a link in a sec if that's what you're asking. Right, but how many can you have prepared is what I'm asking. It doesn't say, oh, you may choose a number of Exactor spells you have prepared less than or equal to your proficiency bonus. But that says you have prepared. How many can you prepare? Is it your prof bonus? Is that it? There is no prepare limit, like Wizard. Right, but you can only prepare one new spell for every spell you forget. And you start off with 2 first level spell slots. So by the wording of this, you can only have 2 prepared spells. Yeah, well, hopefully it doesn't copyright me. Like, I see that you can swap them out, but how do you arrive at a number that you know? Or how do you arrive at a number you have prepared? Because if you only have 2 prepared, you level up and suddenly you can know a 3rd first level spell slot, but you can only prepare it if you forget one of your other first level spells. Or are you trading your cantrips? Is that what you're doing? Like you're forgetting a cantrip for another first level spell? That seems like it's counter to what you said about cantrips always being prepared. So that's the stuff I'm confused by. First level, you know 2-leveled spells. Second level, you know 4-leveled spells. Where does it say that, though? It just says spell slots. Oh, I see. You know, you can gain 2 more. You can know 2 more. Cantrips, it's raw. Okay. Rules is written. Second level, you know 4-leveled spells. When you long rest, you can swap any 2 of them. Well, you can swap 2, so your prepared limit is 2. That's what you're telling me. Because you can only swap 2. You can get the new ones that you leveled up with and learned. Yeah, you learn 2. But learn is not the same as prepare. So prepare, you only have 2 prepared, because that's what you had before you leveled up. Unless you get the 2 that you just knew, that you just learned, unless those automatically also become prepared as part of your level up, which is not written. Apparently not. Yeah, all I'm missing the link of is how you can get from 2 spells prepared to 4 spells prepared. Because you said there's no prepare limit. But if you can only prepare spells by forgetting existing ones you already prepared. Well, I guess forget would be more like no. So what does that mean? Oh, you're preparing one new exactor spell from the list every time you level. Okay. Well, that's completely different. If there's no prepare limit, then you just prepare as many as you know. Okay, never mind. I figured it. Well, I was in the one that you have access to and only you have access to because that was easier, but now I figured it out. I think. You can tell me if I figured it out or not. Because this is under preparing spells, 3Crow. So hopefully you understand my confusion. You wrote about learning new spells or picking new ones from a list by forgetting you wrote about that under preparing spells. So this whole time I thought this whole block was talking about preparing spells, but it isn't really. It's talking about taking new spells and replacing ones that you have that you know. So that's why I was confused. So this would be called swapping spells or something, not preparing. No. At least I think you have X. this voice channel. Oh no, you do not. This one's interesting. So the target creature has to make a saving throw. Right, okay. That makes sense. About the casting. On a failure, the creature becomes bound to you for 1 minute. Interesting. And they can just accept it. Okay, so this is your, I can enchant an ally or I can bind an enemy. I can be bound to either one, but one of them is going to be more supportive. Boons and consequences. So this is interesting. So your sentence basically is like, if you're really read up well read on the exactor, and if you're very well read on the exactor, then this is something that you can do as a form of... Interesting, okay. This is a form of like yeah, it's a form of like negotiation, basically. This feels like the exactor feature. Like the spellcasting thing is also going to be core because they're more of an arcane class than I initially gave them credit for. Yeah, their hit dice might go down to D6 then under my imagination here. Try to let others do the heavy lifting. Unless exactors being ones that can also do some of that heavy lifting themselves is core to their idea, their identity, but we'll see. Them having spellcasting is such a core thing definitely makes me feel that way. Okay, interesting. So I already got to tell you, he's got to rewind and watch a double speed or whatever for a little bit, but I already got to tell you, I'm thinking that this is such a core feature of the class that to me, this is going to be a level 1 feature when I port this, because this needs to be something that you start to use already, and that you get, level 2 can be giving you many more boons and consequences, but we got to pick, like, what are some of the ones that we're fine with being available at level 1? And it's as a bonus action, and it's 3 times before you can do a short or long rest. Only successful agreements count, and you can spend a spell slot to activate it. So I think at level 1, this will be 2 uses. At level 2, it'll be 3 uses. At level 3, it'll be 4. Yeah, it basically be your level plus 1, I think. So you can have 7 uses of it by level 6 if that ends up being our end game after all, right? Or maybe we cap it out at 5th level. Either way, like, I think that's probably what we're going to do. That's like my initial thought. I like that you can spend a spell slot to activate it. That gives you a lot more uses the later your levels go, though. So maybe it is right to be like 3 at level 2. Well, it says third level becomes level 4, or third level is 4, and then you only get 5 at 5th level. So, meh. I think it's probably fine to just do level +1. But anyway, that's a lot of uses if you can also spend a spell slot. But spell slots are obviously used for other things, so you probably don't want to do that. Okay. I will think about that for sure. I'm going to skip over the list for now just to read the third level stuff, but I want to make sure. Okay, the previous agreement ends with that. Yeah, you can only have one of these sort of psychic connections active at one time, is how I'm justifying that. Sigil-bound written covenant. Ties power to parchment and oath to outcome. Okay, now you have expertise in your calligrapher's supplies. Draft a written contract between you and a creature that can read the text, understand you, and willingly sign in blood. Pinprick devices. Drafting takes 10 minutes. Ordinary ink and parchment. You may optionally expend a first level spell slot to instantly draft the contract. Ooh, I like that a little flourish. That's good. Once signed, the contract becomes a magic item that you can summon or dismiss at will. The contract cannot be destroyed by any means short of a wish spell. However, it can be ended early if the creature breaches the terms of the contract, or if the signing creature successfully benefits from the effects of a remove curse, greater restoration, or wish spell. Ah. Okay. You and the DM must agree on a clear objective of what the signer must do or avoid. A contract lasts until unfulfilled or until fulfilled or breached. Choose one boon and one consequence. The boon applies to the signer while the contract is active. The first breach apply apply the chosen instant consequence, or apply the chosen curse. Interesting. Capacity. You can maintain a number of active contracts equal to your proficiency bonus. Duration versus a base duration of 7 days. You or the signer may sweeten the deal. Collateral. Beneficiary may offer gold, a belonging, a memory, a favor, or some other collateral. If you offer the collateral, you may choose one additional consequence. If the beneficiary offers the collateral, they may choose one additional boon. Any collateral is stored in the contract at signing and is released to its new owner when the contract ends. You may expend spell slots at the time of signing to extend the duration of curses in the contract or increase the contract's potency. If you spend at least 6 cumulative spell slots as part of the signing, the curses last until removed. Based. Clairvoyance. Up to 3 times per day, the creature can reroll any attack. Okay, that's like luck, basically. It's like getting lucky for a moment, but I think lucky was 4? I can't remember. Choose one ability. The creature has advantage on ability checks using that ability. Okay, yeah, pretty good. 1+1 AC and its maximum HP increased by 10. Pretty awesome. Repertoire. Once per day, the creature may cast a second level or lower spell from among the exactor's spell list without expending a spell slot or material components. Signer regains function of a lost sense, organ, or limb. On breach, the restoration is lost again in addition to any consequences. Ooh. You and your DM agree on a concise effect. Open boon. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, these are all like same thing. I skipped over the list of this, so I'm gonna kind of do that over here. That makes sense. That's pretty good. Okay, pretty good. Obviously, we got ASI on 4th, fine print 5th, Maker's Mark. Fucking licka. I have not had Maker's Mark yet in my life. Okay. So I'm kind of thinking of moving some stuff up. Contract mastery is very in depth, and I'm kind of thinking that like if we're going for 6 levels, then your prof bonus will increase at level 3. So it'll be 2 for the first 2 levels, 3 for the next 2 levels, and then 4 for 5th and 6th level. So as a result of that, if we were to put contract mastery up to level 2, then level 3 we could have like, obviously you've got your subclass, which is like the primary selection of what you're doing. But then you could also have like choose more from the lists of boons and consequences or whatever. I wouldn't mind in general. I haven't actually read too much about like what these boons and consequences are for the Binding Ties one, but I would in general not mind if these choices were maybe either a bit, they had a little bit more depth in terms of like what all of the moving parts are, or, and this is not like a qualitative statement about the existing ones, I'm just saying on an objective scale, without even knowing what most of these are, from my own design standpoint, I would not mind giving players choices for which boons they have available, which consequences they have available, which curses they have available for all of those, but also making them have a bit more design in them, like literally just being more complicated or whatever. But complexity is like not usually a good term, not a term thought of nicely. So I'll say depth instead, having more involved, having more going on, because then you have less overall options, but you have more say in the matter. You are choosing which ones to use. So like at first level, if we make Ties That Bind first level, that choice is made for you, right? Like you have some basic ones that we agree are pretty like quintessential or archetypal for this class. And then each level you can choose more boons for Ties That Bind. And then Contract Mastery would appear at second level, but have less options. You'd have one less use of it because your prof bonus would still be 2. You'd have maybe you wouldn't have as many like curses and whatnot, but stuff like that. Yeah, the consequences are pretty sick. Losing all hit dice. Can't regain any. So, yeah. 10d10 psychic damage. Damage cannot be reduced. Owned. 3 levels of exhaustion, I can't remember what that even does, but yeah, that's pretty bad. I think it was 5 levels as you die. Is that right? I can't. There's some ridiculous like exhaustion rules that most people don't even bother using. That's pretty good. Well, the contingency one is funny, right? But like, unless I misread this, oh, it's on the first breach. Well, no, these both in both cases they say the contract ends. But I think you can do like I guess this is if you do 3rd level, you can choose like another curse. So, yeah, so this is if you do contingency is like what you would add to it if you wanted it to be like, nah, you're going to have to deal with it. Yeah. So if you expend a 3rd level spell, you can add like brand, for example, and then they need 2 different attempts at removing the curse. That's pretty clever. You can stack to save. Perfect. Annihilated. Can't even talk. Or comprehend language for that matter. Dude, by default, that's 7 days. Could you fucking imagine Could you imagine an NPC having that problem? I mean, can you imagine a player character having that problem? Because I'm going to be honest, the first thing I was looking over with the contract mastery stuff is like, how long until I have an NPC exactor that's like 4th level or whatever and just goes ahead and makes a deal with somebody, you know? In fact, maybe I just backdoor some of the existing people you've made deals with as exactors. Like I just back engineer them or whatever. Yeah, the fucking can't, like, that would be really horrifying. I guess you could learn language again. Right? Like, it doesn't say you can't learn language again. But you would have to. If it's fucking indefinite, you would have to learn some shit. Open boon, the target gains a level. Open curse, the target loses a level. Fuck. So how does the boon thing here is applies on the contract, is active, and then when your contract is over, when it's fulfilled, even if it's like fulfilled successfully or whatever, then the boon would vanish. It would dissipate. So that's sort of like my understanding of it right now. So you would have to unlevel your character after after fulfilling the contract, which I'm sure would be somewhat bittersweet. Be like, listen, you have to though, because if you don't, the same person that gave you a temporary level is going to punish you if you stray from his path. So or her path, maybe that's what happened very recently in a donor campaign near you. I don't know. One level of exhaustion after arrest. Fuck off, dude. Oh, nice. Wither. That's a good one. Yeah, there are some pretty good ones here. Can you imagine just classic, just deal 51 psychic damage. Easy. That's basically smack in the middle of what you can get off of that, too. Alright, so if we were going to go ahead and write out like a quick blah 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 about what we're doing here for the class conversion, we're going to say that so far, like mostly having read the first 3 level stuff, we're going to say that I am leaning towards 1d6 instead of 1d8 for hit dice, but I'll confirm that choice a little bit later on. We're going to say like d6 question mark exactor. Fuck it up. Horrifying. Okay. Like, I'll just do this real quick. Head explodes spontaneously, and even after your brain is turned to mush, you have no eyeballs. Didn't seem related, but weird. Oh no, I'm no longer signed in. What the fuck? I don't remember my fucking password here. There you go. Well, I should be here, but I guess it's gonna yell at me, so let me just go ahead and delete that. Okay. Didn't know that was a hotkey. I don't know how you did that spell slots per level thing in the top, but that's all right. Well, we don't need that per se in the formatting, so to speak. But I wanted to build that from scratch, so I had a little bit more understanding of how to do it in the first place. All right, so we have. So here we have. I'm going to put asterisks next to the ones that I have not adjusted yet, and I'm going to... What? Okay, apparently that just decided to autoplay me or something. Didn't think that's what was happening there. Well, by autoplay, I guess I mean I mean not autoplay. You had to edit it in manually. Interesting. Okay. Let's do... Let's do some description. How did we do? Okay, yeah, we just wrote it. All right, so this was the original. All right, just moving stuff around here a little bit. Taking a seat. Line up my camera a little bit better. Okay, so you have a PDF, so there is no code. Maybe you shared it on Homebrewery elsewhere. That's okay. I'm not too fussed about it right now. Yeah, this does look like it, although yeah, view source. Oh, interesting. I never would have guessed that that's how you had to do it. Okay, cool. Well, I learned even more about the formatting. Nice. Thanks for calling that one out. I probably would not have guessed that I had that. Oh shit. Shambler on the leftovers. Watch out now. Yeah. That's usually how it is. Perfect. Excellent. Okay. So, that's taken care of. Why does this... Yeah, I don't know why that doesn't work very elegantly, I've noticed so far, the lock. Okay, so we know that we are going to go ahead and do some stuff like this. I'm going to lean towards 1d6 for now. Let's see how that goes. We had light armor, simple weapons, one martial weapon, calligraphers, supplies, wisdom, Makes sense. I might change about the psionic focus thing. I might change how it works. It might not be that you have a focus that's external. It might be more so a part of your body. I was thinking about that today. Did you miss anything? I rewrote the description, although a lot of it is still as you wrote. And then I'm leaning towards D6 still for the hit dice. Besides that, I don't think I made any changes. I was just about to say that rather than have a psionic focus or spellcasting focus in general, I think you would pick. Typically, psionic classes would have they would tell you what your psionic, how your spellcasting works in terms of like what part of your body is latent with it, and then maybe you would have some choice about it, but like in the case of the exactor, your psionic focus in air quotes is just your words. So you might pick which language you're required to speak in order to cast your spells. That's probably the choice that you would have, but it wouldn't be an item in the same way. So. Right. Yeah, it just kind of changes some details about them, which I think is interesting. Okay, so we're going to plug in our class features. I guess I'll call it attributes rather than class. Fucking around with formatting a little bit, but I won't be doing that for that long. Weird that it copy pastes in a funky way, but yeah, walk. That's all right. It also makes me kind of look over everything again, so it's not without some utility. Oh, it looks like some text got deleted by accident or something. Should be good now. Good eyes. All right, I think that's pretty cool. I guess I should go ahead and grab the thing here and do that. It's brighter in my face, but it is better. Oh, it looks like I wrote too much about my psionic focus, and now this is over here, so we won't do the column. Do that here then. So that's all together. Let's paste all this stuff here, and then we'll take a look. At what we got. I don't think I had any worries about anything that was written here. Oh, I think it was a number of times equal to your exactor level plus 1. Yeah. And then we don't worry about this. Okay. Easy enough. All right, that's pretty cool. Let's do this. So let's think about which boons we would like to provide. Or I guess maybe we'll just say that you can pick. So there's 7 boons here. So maybe you pick 2 to start. I guess we could do... Yeah, if you do 2 to start and then 1 per level, that's that would add up. But how many consequences? Also 7. Okay, I think that kind of works. Let me scroll down to on the other monitor, pull up Contract Mastery. So I guess if there was one more boon to Contract Mastery, or I guess it would have to be 4 more boons, because Consequences has 3 instant and 6 curses, or 7 curses, right? Yeah. I gotta think about that. I think making a choice during your level up is way more satisfying than just receiving stuff. Receiving stuff can be fun and exciting, but a lot of the times making a choice is what makes your character feel like yours. So even though, like, in theory, this is actually making the class less versatile and less powerful by limiting what you have access to, by choosing it, it makes it a bit more deliberate and feel more like it's you behind it. So yeah, like, I definitely understand the idea of utility being very flexible or whatever, right? Like, it being very flexible in terms of what you can provide. Definitely agree. But there's this weird psychological thing that happens where when you have chosen from a list, it gives you more stuff going on or whatever. And I guess, like, if my current rule set was in place, you wouldn't actually choose at the last level. So maybe what we do instead is that you actually cap this out. You choose 2 for every level up until you can't choose anymore, basically, is what I'm thinking now. So it would be like every level you choose 2 more boons, choose 2 more boons and choose 2 more consequences. And so starting out at level 1, you have 2 of each that you can have. And then you add 2. So you would actually finish scaling this before the end of the game, like before the end of your point where you achieved level 6 or whatever. So. I don't know if you should be allowed to swap them out. I guess it would kind of fit with the spell slots, since you can swap out your spells known or whatever, but maybe on long rest you can. I kind of like them being a bit more of a permanent choice, though. So I guess I'll sit on that for now. I just won't read anything about it just yet. Okay, so we're going to copy this here as well. Apparently that was enough. You had this one chock full for sure. Interesting. There you go. I fixed it. Yeah. I had to grab something anyway. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a strong. I'm probably going to work on the boons and consequences stuff over time or something. Like think about stuff like that. Also, this is not third level anymore. Of course, this is supposed to be second level. And obviously that extra little thing I just did means that I have to find something else. Oh, it's also not level 1. I silly. There's a few lines here that are pretty close to being, or at least I thought there were. Pretty close to being. A lot of them sound very similar to me, Shambler, so I'm gonna be honest, sometimes I feel like they're just playing the same shit. But if you mean you recognize it from a completely different context than listening to it on a stream, then I could believe that. Ta-da! Maybe that's actually really good to have, though. It says first breach, which made me think there would be multiple breaches, but there you go. Okay. I think that's acceptable. So I hadn't really looked much at the exactor, like the, what do you call it? The archetype stuff, so... The Malefactor. I guess one thing I wasn't really considering when I was making the decision to migrate the contract mastery to level 2 is that this feels very deliberately as if it is meant to pull you towards designing your contracts in a direction that is befitting of your subclass, which I'm assuming that's what this is supposed to be anyway. Rokor. Is Rokor from Plants vs. Zombies? If so, that's really funny. I technically probably did play that game at one point, but I don't remember really much about it. Yeah, so this feels like it's something that was, supposed to go kind of hand in glove with the contract mastery. Eldritch Blast cantrip is hilarious. That's really good. Yeah, I like that. I like this stuff. Yeah, this feels pretty good. Majority of the classes' power spike is centered in the contract mastery, granting full subclasses like other classes that may do subclasses of ribbon level flavoring gains. Oh, okay. Gotcha. It's because I said Malefactor and you were thinking about fucking Cosmonarchy stuff, I guess. That makes sense. The Terror. Serious. Yeah, so maybe this stuff would also be sort of pushed up to second level. And then we might think about like let's see. Oh, I like this stuff. This is cool. We might think about making creating something else for third level that's bespoke and entirely different, or is, you know, yeah. So I'm thinking that we'll probably migrate the archetype over to the next stuff here. And, we might even add more choices or whatever. But I think these are fine initial ones for sure. So, I typically like to make sure that the classes have at least the first 2 levels, usually something for the 3rd level as well. We scroll back up to, like, the stuff that we had for Awoken. I waited until I at least had the Primal Aura stuff for level 3. But that's sort of like an ability score increase dressed up with like a couple extra stuff, so there's planned to be more stuff there. But I still feel like this is pretty like solid for the initial draft or what have you. Obviously, it's been auto syncing and auto saving this whole time, so if people want to check it out, they can. Yeah, this ended up this is probably the least I've had to port or change things, but obviously things did still get adjusted. It's just like really pushing it towards I don't know, like I'm also thinking about it from Three Crow's perspective. It must be confusing because sometimes I'm like, that's a lot of stuff that you got to do. That's a lot of things that you have to worry about. Maybe we should put some of that distributed later in the class. And then this time I'm like, yeah, just shove it up there. Second level, first level, everything that you had in second and third level, put it up there. Put it up back up to first level, back up to second level. So it's like the opposite. But obviously, I guess one thing I didn't do yet in the contract mastery is do any sort of limiting factor for the kinds of things that you can do. But I honestly think contract mastery is a little bit more, you might do it once per session or something, you know what I mean? So it's probably fine to have it be a full table of like everything you can do. Because in this particular case, like that's different than the Ties That Bind stuff. The Ties That Bind can be done, I believe, as a bonus action. Yeah. And you have Exactor level +1 uses. So you can do that twice at level 1. And it can be pretty impactful stuff. So you'll be able to use that multiple times per session. Especially as you level up, you'll be able to use that a lot. So that feels like makes more sense to have that be a choice-based selection of things that you can use versus contract mastery. I mean, the whole idea is that you can spend time to write out things in more detail. So yeah, it's a little bit better. Right. So based on that, I think contract mastery probably doesn't need limitations on like you don't know how to master certain boons or whatever. Like I could see the argument. It would be kind of the same argument as the ties that bind as far as like limiting your choices based on your level because you haven't mastered the psionic magic necessary to inflict those consequences or to bestow upon the person those boons. So it kind of makes some sense there, but with contract mastery being a little bit more about like taking time and it being more like involved roleplay and stuff, it's probably fine to not worry too much about that. Like the reason you can't do it for ties that bind is that it's in the moment, and so you really only have like what you've mastered. I think that does compute actually. Yeah. I think contract mastery. I mean, the whole idea is that there's an open boon and open curse, right? So as a result, there needs to be some idea of like you have freedom to pick things. So I think that makes sense. So I guess the only thing that's left to do at this point, obviously we have to continue porting some of the third level, figure out what we're doing for third level, port the 4th, 5th, and 6th level stuff. That can be done at a later date. The main thing to do is to now migrate it into Foundry and add some choices, like figuring out some details based on that. So that's stuff that I will be working on probably over the weekend, try to finalize that stuff. I'm not going to mark it as done on the class conversion thing until... Right, I saw the spell list at the bottom. I haven't, looked at every single one. There's probably going to be some here that I don't know offhand, and yeah, like I'm going to need to take a look at, but yeah, I'll definitely look at it and stuff, but my initial glance over it didn't say anything. The Find Familiar one is maybe a bit confusing, but it kind of like, having it could be like a flavor of an exactor to try to have minions, you know what I mean? So yeah, there's gonna be a lot of things in there that are like, how can I splay this out onto a canvas, thinking of it from the perspective of something that is psionic in nature. But yeah, putting all of this stuff into Foundry is going to be my goal for the weekend, as well as completing the Fate Lot stuff for the Shambler and the, doing a couple of features and stuff for the Gijag as well to finish those off. So obviously some of my weekend will be spent on D&D prep for our session. And then, of course, I have some job stuff to do on the weekend. So that'll take some time as well. But we don't have a tournament stuff to do this weekend for Cosmonarchy. Well, I kind of do. I have to finalize the list of participants for the next tribunal, but Gijag always getting max hit die on level up. I think as trade-off for being large, that could be a rule for large creatures. And not just necessarily the Gijag. But the Gijags are only large creature right now, other than like an Awoken thing. So, and I think Awoken would be different anyway. It wouldn't necessarily be. If your race is of large constitution and size, then that could probably be a sensible thing. Would it be distinct for the Gijag specifically? I'd have to decide. But it kind of makes sense. So. The main thing I want is, like, I don't want large to feel like it's not that different other than the fact that you're large. like, obviously some doors you won't be able to access or whatever, and that's like its own problem. But that's something that I can factor in when I'm designing the environments, obviously. So what I'm thinking is more so like, I don't want you being large to have no consequence, if that makes sense. I would rather, like, I think that having less movement at base and less armor class and more health is like an interesting decision. And maybe you get like automatic bonus to strength or something. I don't know. I'm just throwing shit out there as ideas. Like, I think that should be a consideration. It should feel like you are not a medium creature viscerally by how you play. And there should be many times where you are reminded of that, not just because of your token size and stuff like that. So, like, maybe your melee weapons gain reach or something. I don't know. Like, these are things to think about. I think the Gijag should probably... They probably will have, like, melee weapon 10 feet range or something. Spell counts for second level spell slots are walked on the table. For me, they say 2, 3, 4, 5, which is what I did. Oh, I think you're supposed to cap out at 4, but I changed it from. I know I changed the first levels to 2, 3, 4 instead of 2, 2, 4. Yeah, I changed that. So. Oh, that's supposed to cap at 3. Okay, that's my mistake. I did not comprehend. Yeah, that was when I was like, at some point I copy pasted this stuff over again, and so I probably screwed it up then. Rarer and more expensive, yeah. Well, yeah, that would make sense. Would it be satisfying? Shrug. I don't know. All right. Yeah, I feel like this is pretty good stuff. Obviously, if you think of anything 3Crow, let me know. That, like, you know, something I changed that should be considered in some way. Or something, if you have, obviously, if you have ideas to fill in the third level stuff. I was going to go and take a look at the fine print whatnots, but, oh, and of course, I have to now say Exactor Archetype is available here. And we'll say TBD. Yeah, I think this will be pretty interesting for sure. And I don't think we've shifted. I think the main thing is that Ties That Bind had a lot of stuff you had to immediately learn, but that was at second level, so it wasn't as immediate in terms of character creation. It's just as soon as you got it, it's very dense. But at level 1, you can look at this and kind of grok it real quick and just say, like, okay, I've got... I can pick 2 things of each list and forget about the rest, and then mostly I just have to worry about knowing the rules of how it works. And I know, like, it's one of 2 benefits and one of 2 consequences. And then as you level up, you can improve that. So, yeah. Like I was saying, at one point, so we'll say on 28 Nav, stream was completed with first draft of levels 1 and 2 ported. Levels 3 plus are TBD, and after your Foundry data entry. I'll link the stream here as well. Yeah, I'm gonna give them a once over to see if there's any anything that needs to be tweaked. That might end up being something that, like, based on what. Maybe we wait until, like, a character is actually created and we kind of playtest it as is, and I decide do we need some more choice there or some more involvement there, but that's something to think about. As for what campaign we're playing this week, so Lucy can't make this weekend, so we were thinking of maybe moving ADS to the weekend following. If that's the case, I mean, we still haven't gotten a schedule check for everybody else. Because of where you guys are at in ADS, it would feel pretty bad to have Lucy not there. So first, I'm going to ask if Alexander, are you cool with us playing? I'm going to ask if Alexander is cool with that, and then separately, I'm going to ask everybody in Terath's Hunt if they are cool. I'm going to do 30 on 30th. All right, so that's what we're going to see about. When you first heard Lucy couldn't make Sunday, I moved your Saturday plans to Sunday. Ah, shit. Well, I didn't read that message before I sent it. I don't know if I can do Saturday. I probably could, but so let me know if you guys can do. Okay, so we'll figure that out later. I'm going to close the stream down for the time being and get ready for my next stream, which is donation stuff for Cosmonarchy. So probably boot that up in the next half hour. And yeah, my plan is to just kind of do some more work on this sort of thing over the weekend and early next week. Hopefully by the rate of stuff that's been getting accomplished for the donor tasks, it shows that I'm making a good faith effort to, clear the deck. And like super ideally, we can say that by the 30th, which is Sunday, there are no more November, donor tasks that are outstanding, right? And we're just waiting for the December ones to come in next month. That would be the ideal. Obviously, some of the tasks don't come through until like halfway through the month anyway. So I'm not even necessarily like that far behind if it extends into December. But I'm just throwing that out there as a thing. So GG's. And we will see how that goes. Peace.